The First Amendment protects freedoms of speech, press, religion, assembly, and petition. This sounds straightforward, but the First Amendment is still the subject of continuing interpretation and dispute. So let's look at the freedom of speech, which gives Americans the right to express themselves without fear of government interference. There are a number of categories of unprotected speech, including obscenity, true threats, incitement to imminent lawless action, and defamation. But deciding what speech falls within these categories is difficult. In reaching these determinations, courts often look at speech on a case-by-case basis and consider the context in which the speech was made. For instance, political speech, support or opposition of political figures, parties, and/or policies, enjoys stronger First Amendment protection. If speech is political in nature, no matter how outrageous and offensive it might be, it may still be protected by the First Amendment. So, yeah, this gets complicated. The First Amendment protects you from government punishment for what you say in most instances. However, the First Amendment is not unlimited. It protects you from government action, not the action of private organizations or people. Unless you're employed by the government, complaining about your boss could get you fired. Similarly, since social media websites are for the most part private entities, they're the only ones who can police posts on their respective sites. Similar to freedom of speech, freedom of the press allows people to express themselves through publication. This important freedom enables our journalists and reporters to freely report news and stories of public interest. But this also comes with some limitations. For instance, defamatory statements are not protected. Again, though, what constitutes defamation also requires a fact-intensive investigation. In addition, the First Amendment protects our right to peacefully assemble or gather together as a group for like-minded social, economic, political, or religious purposes. The First Amendment also protects our right to protest the government. We are free to sign petitions or even file a lawsuit against the government as well. And lastly, in guaranteeing the freedom of religion, the First Amendment prohibits the government from establishing a state religion or from favoring one religion over the other.
It's been said in the press that I was invited to speak to the transgender employees at Netflix, and I refuse. That is not true. If they had invited me, I would have accepted it, although I am confused about what we are speaking about. This film that I made was invited to every film festival in the United States, and some of those invitations I accepted. And when this controversy came out about the closer, they began disinviting me from these film festivals. And now, today, not a film company, not a movie studio, not a film festival, nobody will touch this film. Thank God for Ted Sarandos at Netflix. He's the only one that didn't cancel me yet. To the transgender community, I am more than willing to give you an audience, but you will not summon me. I am not bending to anybody's demands. And if you want to meet with me, I'd be more than willing to, but I have some conditions. First of all, you cannot come if you have not watched my special from beginning to end. You must come to a place of my choosing and a time of my choosing. I desperately want people to see this movie, but I understand why investors would be nervous. Since nobody will touch it, I'll tell you what I'll do. I will make it available for all of you in 10 American cities, going on sale in the next few days. You will be able to see this movie in its entirety, and you can see what they're trying to obstruct you from seeing. And you can judge for yourself, but you cannot have this conversation and exclude my voice from it. That is only fair. You have to answer the question, am I canceled or not? Then let's go. Thank you very much, and good night.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of Hips News. Wanted to say thank you to our family and the community out there listening, and we got a special guest. Would you like to say hello to the people out there in the community?
Peace world, peace world. This is Octavius.
So, Brother Octavius, we appreciate you coming in. Vessel 2, you have anything you would like to say?
Yes, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for listening in. We should have some interesting topics to cover this time around again at the round table. Nice meeting you, brother. Make sure
Peace.
you don't stay a stranger.
Okay. With that, let's jump right into it. Vessel 2, you got anything to say about it?
First off, I just want to know if everybody was able to watch The Closer.
Yes, I seen it.
Yeah, I checked that. Yep.
So we all can have somewhat opinionated opinions about what's going on back in the world.
Right.
When I watched The Closer, personally, I didn't really see anything wrong as far as his content, especially when it came to the alphabet family. I don't have an issue with any of them as far as what they choose to believe and what they choose to do. It's just me personally, I don't like to be bullied, and I feel that they put themselves in a position to where they are aggressively approaching people to accept their beliefs. And to me personally, like I keep saying, it's not necessarily that group who tries to push their belief on other people, but generally speaking, I don't think it's right for people to push their agendas or their beliefs on anybody. But watching for hijacks, when I watch any and everything, I do kind of see how you can be objective to what he says, in particular about how can I even phrase it, the heavily melanated people in Turtle Island. But if you know the history, then all of the comedians walk that fine line where they have to get a certain group of people to continuously fund their pockets. In my mind, I'm looking at it as, okay, well, that's the European in us, where we have to please the pockets. So it's not necessarily his tongue whipping out. It's the tongue of the master whipping out through him. And it is what it is. With Chappelle's doing comedy as his means of breaking bread, knowing that he just said that he doesn't bend for anybody, but yet he still has the tongue of the whip, which is something that we've learned from Europeans. Hip hop is the same. It didn't start off that way, but it is the same. But like I said, just, to hear the profanity, to hear, actually pay attention to what they're saying at this age, it's like, okay, I can see why the young kids is running around here doing what they're doing, because that's the message.
Well, first, The Closer, I thought Aside from that, I've been listening to comedians do the craft of stand-up comedy since I wasn't even allowed to watch, certain movies, like, you know what I mean? Certain comedians' language was considered too vulgar, even for the Richard Pryors or the Red Foxes. Like, them elders, that was for them.
Right.
They just sit around and listen. Youngins, y'all got to go in another room or something. Y'all got to do something. Y'all can't be in here listening to this.
Right.
So the thing about comedians, to me, and that's just me, and that it goes across the board. Like when you good, regardless of what race, creed, color, gender, whatever, there's a genius to it. There's an intellect that speaks to society as is and allows the things that people may not only be scared to say, but don't even know how to phrase or formulate their thought to get it out and across.
Wow.
And they speak for a whole volume of people, which is why, it is considered an art form because it has that ability to communicate to not just one, not just a few, but across the board. That has nothing to do with masters control. Masters, I feel, you know what I mean? They've been running the whole situation as far as censorship. You know what I mean? As far as how we watch the news, what we want to buy. I mean, that's marketing strategy. The fact that people are even discussing Dave Chappelle, like he's been passing legislation or something like that. Like he's sitting up in Congress and Senate. Like, really though? I mean, he been talking about it. It's not like, yo, this ain't my first Dave Chappelle stand-up. Obviously, it sounds like a lot of people making comments because they never watched this show before, or they never even listened to some comedy before. Not just Dave Chappelle, they just never watched no comedians prior to 2020 or something. I mean, this is raw. Hip hop is culture to me. It raised me. And it evolves. Ain't nothing gonna stay the same. How we fight has to be recalibrated. Like how we move against. It's not the same. This beast ain't moving the same way as it was when some of our more iconic leaders were among us. Let's say our ancestors, such as, the Honorable Marcus Garvey, you know what I mean? Like, it ain't that no more. It hits because it speaks on a deeper level that can't be censored. You know what I mean? That's when you're speaking on a higher level of things. I think that's what this man here been doing. I mean, this is an intelligent individual, being that, he navigating the terrain of a business, which is difficult. He's navigating the terrain of a very, very, like, business, show business. He navigating that terrain, staying true to the grain with it. There's always different sides, different angles, there's different perspectives, different views. It always been that way. And to act like you're going to start shunning people and all of that, and you really got a gripe or a bellyache or a fight and you taking it out on this individual, they do it. I mean, this is the modern day witch hunt. I mean, they've been doing it, but what is it all for? All you're going to do is walk away feeling goofy about it because you're going to realize, this, at least those that's getting caught in the storm, there's a lot of people who know what they're doing. They spinning this. They spinning this because most of them don't even care what he's saying. They're not even listening to dude. And that's been a problem in the world. They ain't even listening to the people back home. They ain't even listening to the earth. The earth is washing right now. Has run around talking about Rona and stuff like that and masks and vaccinations. It got people fighting amongst each other about it. Media, entertainment, how we all of it is in a state of change. And they still doing the old rope-a-dope because heads are still talking about Dave Chappelle instead of talking about them dudes who's actually passing laws. Like, what is their name? What do they look like? Where are they baseball cards? Like, why I don't know his name? He's passing laws on my behalf. I could vote, but still, like, that vote going through how many different hands?
As they was talking about abandoning Dave Chappelle with this LGBT ordeal, these lettered people. And if you look at the history, they've been pushing this agenda for way back when, men wearing dresses, some of the movies like good example, Some Like It Hot with Marilyn Monroe. If you ever see the ending of that, you know what I'm talking about. Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks, Three's Company. Jack Tripper lived with two women, pretending like he was gay, and go on and so forth and so on until they actually come into fruition, or their agenda is coming to terms. And if they're gonna be harsh on anybody, all these old TV programs, they have to penalize as well because they were making fun of the homosexual and LGBT group. Basically, for me, myself, Dave Chappelle, he's an artist. He's been doing this for a while. He's controversial. It's all about business. As you can see, he was promoting his documentary. These alphabet groups and all this, it's all done just to keep us off our game. And the bottom line is that I really think that he got in trouble because of his Space Jews joke. And when we come back, we can listen to that joke. And then, okay, stay tuned. Stay tuned to Hips News, and we'll be right back. We're gonna do Dave Chappelle, a little bit of Dave Chappelle's The Closure, and this one is on the Space Jews joke. Let's check.
These UFOs keep coming to Earth, and it made me think of an idea for a movie. It sounds dumb, but hear me out. In my movie idea, we find out that these aliens are originally from Earth, that they're from an ancient civilization that achieved interstellar travel and left the Earth thousands of years ago. Some other planet they go to, and things go terrible for them in the other planet, so they come back to Earth, decide that they want to claim the Earth for their very own. It's a pretty good plot line, huh? I call it Space Jews.
It's there, and if you actually listen to it, like he said, it's over a lot of people's head. And that's the scary part, is that I feel that that joke had a lot of weight to it. Anybody else want to drop something on it?
I agree, but that goes back to what I was saying about those comedians, those like, this is a genius. Just if I disagree with you or I agree with you, that shouldn't take away from the fact that you are a genius. I mean, that just means this is a thinking individual. It don't mean he can't be evil. It doesn't mean that he's an angel. It just means, yo, that's a thinking individual. That's
Well,
how.
comedy, comedy is relative. It only hits if one or two things happen. If it's has some truth to it, and sometimes the truth hurts. Granted, or the fact
Period.
that or the fact that you can relate to it. If you tell a joke, and then you don't understand, you have no grounds, or you can't understand what the purpose behind it. It's not funny. But you can see that a good joke sometimes can go across borders. A good example like Mr. Bean. Back in the day, a lot of people thought he was really hilarious, and he really didn't talk. He just did a lot of facial he did a lot of facial comedy. Or take it back even further, Laura Hardy or
Yeah,
Abbott
mime
Costello.
or just
What I'm saying?
mime.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even
So
Michael Jackson was using some of that stuff he saw on the TV, like with the glove, and you know what I mean? The mime, the motions and stuff, like, and that's dance. But
right.
yeah, I mean, it's just the technology shifted is all, right? Well, it goes back to that evolution thing. I mean, I know I went off on a tangent, but I'm just saying, like, that genius when someone's when it's an intellect, you know what I mean? It reaches a higher frequency, right? It hits a frequency that goes across the board,
Right.
and it's not just King Chappelle, but there's many talented people in different genres that have that ability. Some of them we know about. Some of them became famous and popular, and it's really through grassroots, because only the true, authentic could really make that stand and stand firm on that platform for that duration of time. I mean, it's an evil business these people are in. To keep their sanity and be able to like speak their truth is heroic. That's a heroic level of ability to me. Like, mad people can't even get in front of some, person right in front of you and speak your thoughts, speak your mind, honestly speak it. You know what I mean? Usually you don't have to insult nobody, but communicate to the best of your ability without insulting them your stance. Many people can't do it. Many people don't even have the ability to utilize that tool called language. A lot of times language is weaponized. ABC structured language. That's not even our original tongue to get across that feeling. And I don't think none of these languages are the languages we speak in are not the human language. It's not the human language. I could come from where I'm from and then come to a different country and be able to communicate and make bread out here and all of that without speaking their native tongue. That lets me know something. That lets me know, nah, this is on a real base. This is on a much more basic level. Don't put no man's borders in front of this. This is, but that's where that censorship come in. That's where, oh, he's getting too popular. We got to break him down, because it's not the fact that it's popular to one group of people. It's not the fact that it's popular to the minorities. They don't care. It's the fact when it crossed that, when it started touching more people, like what he said in that joke about the space Jews and all of that. Yeah, if you know a little something about your history, because that's human history. That ain't religion. That exceeds religion. Judaism exceeds religion. Judaism exceeds, modern society. Judaism exceeds like Apple and all of the. That's been around much longer. At this point, people need to appreciate like religion for what it is. That's just human history, human evolution, just like civilization. Regardless if we feel like, oh, we're going backwards. We going back to caveman status. Oh man, look at all that's going on. Nah, yo, it's just changed. I mean, all right, so now I'm looking at my youngsters and I'm like, yo, let me see you hold this pencil. Use this, write something. Let me see you do something with this pencil. And don't use an eraser too. You make a mistake, cross it out. Acknowledge that. Look at, so when you turn that page, you see that mistake and you don't repeat it. The computer allows you to totally erase your mistakes. Shoot, in a lot of cases, it don't even allow you to make one. I feel like we following these fools like their whole structure and how they formatted this thing. Like they formatted, we utilizing a format that's alien to our society, how we were moving. Like we utilizing stuff that is not pro-earth. There must be some alien tech. All the man do is speak gospel. All most of them do is speak gospel. And people hate to be put in front of a black mirror, especially society. Society has a bit like, oh, you stepping out? You trying to disturb what's going on? Bomb. All right, Martin Luther King, we kill you. Bomb, we kill whoever. It's not just him. I'm just saying they kill whoever like disturbs the structure.
Well, let me interject really quick. Vessel 2, would you like to come in and say a few words? And if we have enough time, maybe we can go around again, and then you can give the final thoughts.
Sure, no problem. To be honest with you, the space Jew, I didn't catch that first go around. I thought he said space juice. And it's interesting because knowing the history, knowing where we come from, the Smallhats have been a topic that you really don't play with. So for him, as I said before, the tongue is controlled. He might not admit that he bent his knee to get that money, but we don't own anything. And they're not the only sector of that group under the title of Jew, but they are the ones who seem to be in the forefront. And the number is very small compared to other demographics in America anyway, but they tend to have control over a lot of different industries. And I'm not going to say that's good or bad. That's not my position, but the direction that we've been heading in, if you just leave it in America, Turtle Island, it's been since Disney, their control. They've owned the music industry. They've owned the entertainment industry. They've owned a majority of everything that we tend to gravitate to. Up until this point, as far as our behavior as a collective group has been led by their strengths. They are all of our foundational organizations were funded by them. So yeah, I think for the most part, for us to even be talking about Dave Chappelle, it's irrelevant. His entertainment is there for a reason, and it should shock people who are not open in the mind frame of thinking outside of that small box that they live in. But I mean, as you said earlier, Octavius, that there's so many other issues out here in the world that we don't have control over, but they are being controlled. And you know, for him to be able to shine light on whatever he can within that industry is a blessing. So I take it as that. And I'm glad he's able to do what he can. As far as the council, what is it? Cancel
culture. Cancel culture. Yeah.
I mean, in my opinion, they are most likely rich European kids. And the foundation of our government were, most of them, homosexual Europeans that ran things.
Mm.
And it just stems down through whatever they wanted to manipulate the masses to do. If you look at, for example, just a prime example, we can go with Hoover. J. Edgar was flaming. And who did he target? He targeted black people, his own people, and so-called communists, which at that time had an Asian face.
Final thoughts, Octavius. Any
Mm.
final thoughts? Anything you want to say before we cut it?
Yeah, and you know, it's all that what we reviewed today, and the privilege of being so blessed to have a discussion about the thoughts on Dave Chappelle's closure stand up. Let us know how blessed we are. It also let us know, it give us a lot more transparency, those with eyes, that is, and know how to utilize them. And give us a bit more insight into the transparency of this already existed. You already knew.
Yeah, well, I think what what we got to remember is that it is a business and it is an industry, and we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't get too emotional, get caught up in this kind of stuff. It is not good for our mental and it
Development.
keeps us. That's right. It keeps us unbalanced and unsteady. We got to stay on our square. We got to
Mm-hmm.
do what's best for us and our family and our
Word.
people, and continue and evolve and create. One thing for sure. There you go. Watch for the hijack. One thing for sure is that speaking about all of this, you have to keep in mind, at this time, we still have free will at this moment. Like you said,
Yeah.
you can cut things. If you don't like it, you can cut it off. If you don't want to be bothered with, you can shun and say, keep it moving, pass my way. Whatever they're doing is what they're doing, and if it's not, to your standards or your moral ideas, then you still have the right and the free will to change and do so. But far as like I said, far as we know, as far as we know, Dave Chappelle, I think all of this is a ploy. Because if you listen to what he was, the aftermath of it all, he said what he asked the people, is he canceled?
Am I
So
canceled?
I yeah, so
No.
he asking the people. So obviously they all pushing business agenda. He's trying to push for the documentary. So obviously he's not going anywhere. He's still around. He's still going to do what he's doing. And Vessel
Mm.
two, you take us out with the final thoughts.
All right, final thoughts. Yes, it was good to build. Please, brother, come back when you got the time on your hands. And for the people out there who are listening, taking the time out
No
to
doubt.
hear us build as brothers, we appreciate you. The message, I think, the takeaway message that we should leave is mind your own business. Stay on your square.
Word.
Make sure, when
Doing your
possible,
thing.
get your lessons, study. Education is the only way out, but not necessarily
The traditional form, or traditional, what they
right.
traditionally refer to as
No,
education.
we no
Right.
longer have to be constrained to their form of education, but the more
Word.
you know about who you are, where you come from, the more you will be able to see and use your senses to understand what we're up against. And it's going to take people of like mind to come together and build. So with that, I wish everybody to stay safe, stay virus free, and tune in next week we should be able to have another round of interesting conversation for you. Peace.
Peace.
Peace.